Testing, testing, testing. Mic check. Testing, testing, testing. 1, 2, 3. Testing. Hey, from Toronto, Canada, Futurist Jim Carroll. This is just like walking out on stage in Las Vegas, except when it was Las Vegas. I had about 20 people working behind the stage and on the soundboard and a whole bunch of AV folks who helped to make the show go. Now it's just me in my basement, but look, this is part of this new world that we find ourselves in, and I'm trying to build my own stage to get my message on future trends, innovation, and disruption out there to people. So the groove that I've found myself in is to track every week what I see happening in the world in terms of leadership, in terms of innovation, in terms of disruptive thinking. What are people doing to try to align themselves to the extremely fast-paced change which is occurring out there? And look, my attention this week was really drawn to something that is happening in terms of food distribution. We all saw the news articles that there might be challenges with food supply. The issue of meat packing plants has risen to the forefront. I've happened to watch what is going on with your local farmers market, because I think what I am observing here is the same type of trends which are driving forward big organizations to discover disruptive opportunities are also occurring as local farmer markets work fast to try to discover new markets, new opportunities in this big, complex world. And so what I'm going to do is I'm going to share with you a video from a local farmer here, Kendall Hills Farm. It's located outside of Toronto. Now, in their old life, they would travel to the city on a regular basis and they would participate in the farmers market. And this was a mainstream of their success. Obviously, that is shut down. I came across a remarkable news story which put in perspective what they have done to align themselves to this new fast world, and a video that they put together to outline. I'm gonna share with you just the first 45 seconds of this video because I think it is an absolutely remarkable story. Listen to what he has to say.
It's not an online store. It's building an entirely new distribution path for local food. I've said since day one, growing food, it's a challenge, but it's relatively easy, right? Getting that food to somebody has been the bigger challenge. There was the old food system that existed 2 weeks ago. There's a new food system that's being figured out right now, and I don't think we'll be going back. I hope we're not going back. My name is Dave.
What he has done is he's actually created an e-commerce site to provide the ability for folks to shop and obtain food items extremely quickly. Not only that, but he has arranged for local students to do delivery within the city on a regular basis. And he has done this on an extremely fast basis. Like many people, he saw his world coming down and collapsing around him. And rather than sitting back and waiting for the future to change, and rather than sitting back and waiting for someone to figure out how does he provide himself opportunity going forward in the future, he specifically decided that he was going to innovate. He was going to try to pursue opportunity. He was going to pursue ideas. And when you watch this video, you realize that this is a microcosm of the fast-paced innovation which is occurring out there today. I think part of what is happening right now in every single sector, every single industry with a lot of folks is people are realizing that what they can do is pursue ideas faster than ever before, because right now it is a matter of survival. So the fact that he saw the pandemic coming, he saw the news, he saw the panic, he saw the fear, he decided that right now was a perfect time to pursue the opportunity to create an e-commerce site that would support all the farmer market participants that he has been a part of for the last many years. Make that site available to the public, get word out there, get a PR campaign happening, and not only that, establish some sort of local supply chain delivery system. He did all this in just a matter of weeks. And that's the type of thing which is unfolding everywhere in the world. We can look at what is occurring with this downturn and this pandemic and realize that, there's a lot of negativity to it. But I think we are also realizing there is a tremendous amount of innovative thinking occurring out there in absolutely real time. In the last week, I've spent a lot of time discovering what I can do with this online broadcast and trying to figure out the storyline that I can pursue. I was kind of crucified last week by one particular online community for trying to do too much with multiple different camera angles and too much happening from an audio-visual perspective. So I've toned it down to a degree this week. One single camera with a very specific story on future trends in innovation. But as I did that, I discovered who some of the pioneers were in the world of online broadcast. And it's not what you would think would be your usual subjects. It's churches. It's folks who have discovered that they can no longer reach out to their congregation in the traditional manner. And so what I've discovered is a community of people who are really at the forefront of virtual broadcasting, exploring a lot of technology, exploring a lot of ideas, exploring a lot of concepts. And that is another example of the incessant, fast-paced innovation that is occurring out there, because people have to innovate in order to survive. I've also found it in local communities. Last week, I talked a little bit about the innovation occurring up by my ski chalet north of Toronto. I'm part of a community called the Town of Blue Mountains. And what they have done in just the last week is they have used digital mapping technology as a tool to reach out to constituents and make them aware of areas that are permissible to visit during the lockdown and areas which are a no-go. Someone suggested the idea on a Monday, and I swear the municipality actually had it ready to go by that Wednesday. Another example of really fast, innovative thinking. And something I've come to realize is that to a degree what is happening right now is all innovation is fast, it's local, it's accelerated. People are being forced to innovate faster than ever before because we really have no choice but to do that. My son has just made me aware that the color of the shirt I'm wearing today has actually made me a part of the green screen for this broadcast. Too late, can't fix that. You learn something new absolutely every single day. So I've just got to soldier on with the reality of what is occurring here. So what are some of the other things I've seen? Well, last week, my storyline on what has occurred with 3D printing caught a lot of attention, because what I put in perspective was the reality that we are witnessing the absolute acceleration of a trend, 3D printing, as a result of the necessity of dealing with COVID-19. That's what's happening as we 3D print nasal swabs and surgical masks and other medical devices. I explain what this is doing is it's capturing the attention of a lot of folks who realize that there is a real opportunity now to take 3D printing forward faster as a tool within the entire world of manufacturing. I'm watching those trends unfold in other areas, and I've got two notable examples. But before I get into that, I want to talk about what I think is happening here from a leadership perspective. People are realizing that an old leadership concept that we called VUCA, V-U-C-A, has risen to the forefront, and that's the issue of volatility. That's dealing with massive uncertainty. It's dealing with ambiguity, and is dealing with heightened complexity. Now, this is a leadership concept that has been around for quite some time. There is now a realization that we need to deal with these issues faster than ever before, because certainly we're enveloped by volatility. There is uncertainty everywhere we go. Ambiguity, we don't know, the clarity does not exist with everything we do. And there's increasing complexity from every single direction. As a leadership issue, this is something a lot of leaders have focused on and trying to deal with a world in which the future belongs to those who are fast. What they are now discovering is that they need to accelerate this leadership capability. I want to share with you a video from the past where I was talking about how organizations try to manage increasing complexity. And think about what is happening in terms of VUCA. Think about what is happening in terms of volatility. Here's a statistic chart from the Wall Street Journal just a couple of days ago that put in perspective the fast shift that occurred in the food supply industry, in the agricultural industry, with global supply chains, as spending at restaurants and as spending at traditional food out-of-home activities absolutely collapsed. And as everybody began eating at home, everybody began online shopping. What we witnessed was an absolutely ridiculous pace of change that has impacted supply chains, and that is still reverberating. It's still occurring at an extremely fast pace. Organizations in the agricultural sector, organizations in the food sector, organizations in the consumer product sector, they're all having to sit back and look at their supply chains, and they're thinking about what do we do to deal with the reality of what is occurring, given that everything we knew about the reliability of our supply chain has...
There's a fellow at GE, head of innovation for General Electric.
I think part of what is happening is they're realizing they need to focus on innovation. They need to accelerate innovation. I'm going to share with you a clip that I used at about 2009, 2010, where I was talking about a study done by General Electric on what organizations did to deal with economic uncertainty, and a powerful lesson. It's only a minute long. I'd encourage you to listen closely.
There's a fellow at GE, head of innovation for General Electric, did a study, and he looked at several thousand organizations and what they did during previous periods of economic uncertainty. He looked at what they did during the oil shock of the 70s, the downturn of the 80s, the 1990s recession, the dot-com bust. And what he found was that 60% of the organizations in the study, they did what they had to do to survive. They cut costs, they cut back on travel, they didn't make any big, bold moves. They were driven by indecision. 30% of the organizations didn't make it. We have an economic downturn. Some folks don't survive. But what he discovered was that 10% became breakthrough performers because they specifically decided, despite lingering economic uncertainty, right now is the time to be making big, bold moves to position yourself for the future.
Right now is the time to make big, bold decisions for your future. So when I study the future and I study trends, one of the trends that I think which is really rising to the forefront right now is supply chain resilience. What organizations are doing is realizing that all of the assumptions they have made about their supply chain, the integrity of the supply chain, the reliability of the supply chain, particularly from a global perspective, but also from a local perspective, is something that they need to spend a lot more time thinking about. I think we're going to look back 5 years from now and realize that supply chain resilience became one of the key issues that organizations learned to manage in new and different ways. And so we're going to see a tremendous amount of innovation and transformative thinking in this regard. For example, there is a lot of discussion about how do we bring back manufacturing from overseas so that we are less subjected to the risk that goes with a massive global event like this. That will not be easy because we are lacking in the manufacturing skills, we are lacking in the capabilities, we are lacking in the ability to quickly shift what we can do from a manufacturing perspective to deal with this reality. But I guarantee you there's a lot of organizations who are thinking about that. From a local perspective, we are struggling with issues of supply chain resiliency in terms of what you are seeing occur with agriculture, what you are seeing occur with farmers. For example, the stories appearing in the news media about dairy farmers having to dump thousands of liters, thousands of gallons of milk simply because the supply chain has broken down. This is going to be one of those trends, one of those issues which we will look back at in the future. But think about manufacturing from another perspective. As we somehow get back to a new normal, as we somehow return people to a factory floor, we're going to have to practice social distancing. We're going to need a lot of transformative thinking in terms of what we can do to deal with the fact that we can't go back to the old way of working in which people were working in close proximity. That's why I think one of the key trends going forward is going to be the acceleration of what we call cobot technology. These are robotic factory machines known as cooperative robots that can work hand in hand with humans and that can work hand in hand with other robots. It's a trend that has been around for quite some time, and it has led to a revolution in terms of transformative thinking in the world of manufacturing. But because of the COVID-19 situation, this is one of those trends which is picking up speed to a huge degree. Because right now, I guarantee you, as manufacturing companies are looking not only at the issue of supply chain resiliency, they're also looking at what they can do in terms of factory social distancing. So looking back 5 years from now, 10 years from now, we are going to realize there was an absolute explosion in cobot technology. I'll give you another example. Think about what is occurring in the world of agriculture. Now, in the world of agriculture, we've talked for a long time about potential trends involving vertical farms, the ability to grow food inside towers. We have talked about precision agriculture, the ability to utilize a lot of technology for better insight with what we are doing into the visibility of our product, the visibility of the farm, visibility of the soil, visibility of the health of the plants. There's been a lot of talk about use of technology in the world of agriculture for quite some time. But the same type of social distancing concerns are going to emerge. And so when we think about something like vertical farming, for example, I think we will see an acceleration of this trend. I think we will see the emergence of a lot of robotic technology that will help us to manage that trend from a social distancing perspective. It's another example of what is occurring as we look at some trends from the past and realize that what we've talked about in terms of particular trends are speeding up. There's no doubt that other trends are slowing down, but this is how we need to think about the future, because truly what is happening here is the birth of new billion-dollar industries that 5 or 10 years from now, we're going to look back on and say, wow, that's when it happened. That's one of those industries that took off. That's one of those trends which became very real. Here's a third example. I alluded to drone technology last week, and you're certainly seeing a lot of stories occurring with drone technology with, for example, the delivery of medicines, the delivery of packages, the Amazon story that someday you might have a drone arriving in your backyard delivering product. I think there is something much more fundamental at work here, which involves the same type of physical, social distancing aspect. And again, if we come back to the world of agriculture to put it in perspective with what is occurring there. World of agriculture, we've talked about precision agriculture. We've talked about using satellites. We've talked about using drones. We've talked about using sensors to judge the health of plants, to judge for disease, to judge for nutrient, to judge for
humidity and watering levels, irrigation, and things like that. But part of what is happening now on the family farm is a realization that we can accelerate this technology. This is a technology which has a perfect role in helping us to manage the new complexities on the farm. In the same way that we might be social distancing on a factory floor, we might now have to practice increased social distancing in the world of agriculture. What are some of the tools that help us to do that? Drone technology, robotic technology, a lot of technology that helps us to automate the process on the family farm. These are the types of issues that I'm thinking about today as we go forward into the future. I'm trying to cast my mind, looking at the trends which I've talked about in the past, putting them under a new microscope to determine what might they mean as we go forward into this vast, uncertain, complex, and very ambiguous future. We are in the world of VUCA leadership. Velocity, uncertainty, ambiguity, and certainly an awareness that what is happening with the future is we don't know exactly where we're going, but we're making great time. And I think what it really comes down to is if you've worked in the technology field, if you have studied future trends, you're going to be familiar with something that we call the Gartner Hype Cycle. Now, the Gartner Hype Cycle is something that the research firm came out years ago, and they said, look, any new technology which comes to our world, it goes through the curve. It appears. We get the period of ridiculous hype and excitement around that particular technology, so we hit the peak of inflated expectations. And then everybody realizes it's going to take a lot of work to make that particular technology or disruptive concept real. So we hit the trough of disillusionment. Eventually, though, we figure it out and we hit the plateau of productivity. Now, you can put a trend like electronic commerce on this curve and it fits perfectly. We had the dot-com years, 1998, 1999. The business model for a lot of companies that were selling online seemed to involve a concept of let's give stuff away at a loss and we'll make it up in volume. It didn't quite work. We had the dot-com collapse. Companies that had billions of dollars of valuation with absolutely no sales disappeared. It's no wonder why. But at that moment in time, a lot of people concluded there was no future to e-commerce. There was no future to online shopping. In the meantime, organizations like Amazon were busy behind the scenes building up their e-commerce infrastructure, building up the tools for online shopping. And look where we are today. The plateau of productivity. Every single retailer has had to rush to provide online shopping and e-commerce capabilities. I think part of what is happening right now and the way we judge the future is a realization that some of the assumptions that we have made about particular technologies, particular trends, particular disruptive concepts, they are being changed at an absolutely furious pace as a result of what is occurring with COVID-19. So we need to put every trend under a new umbrella, under a new microscope with what is occurring with COVID-19. So that's what I'm covering this week. I hope you enjoyed the show. Certainly going to learn next week to wear a different shirt that doesn't let some green screen silliness. Every week I discover something new. Every week I discover it's really a different world when you are your own video producer. But I'm going to soldier on because I think it is important, just like the rest of the world is innovating, to continue innovating on my own. If you'd like to learn more, visit me on my website, jimcarroll.com. Follow me on Twitter. You'll find me on Facebook. You'll find me on LinkedIn. And send me your ideas as to some of the issues that you hope I will cover in future issues. That's it for now. Have a great day.